special guest, Kyle Thompson, and returning guest, Paul Montelongo. If you have not seen the other episode, please go check it out. We covered multifamily, life, marriage, all the good stuff. Definitely go check it out. It's a previous episode before this one. We're back with Deal Breakdown. We cover cool, interesting business stories. Paul says he has 2 for us today. What 2 you got for us today?
Okay. Paul. Well, you kind of prompted me here, so I had to think about it, right? After a while, you get to do these things, and they all seem kind of like, okay, this is the normal way that business happens. But I do recall a deal that we bought in 2020, right? December of 2020. So it's in San Antonio. It's a Class C plus, Class B minus property. And it's in an area of town that is not sketchy, but it's not, it has some crime.
Uh-huh.
And so the day before we actually closed, we had a property management contract. And the day before we closed that property management contract, that they pulled out. And so we were left without a property manager on the day that you take over the property. Now, when you take over a property, you got to have your property management in place because they tell the tenants, hey, new sheriff in town, here's where you pay your rent. And that happened to be December 1, 2020. So rent was due that day. Okay.
Oh, no.
So we took all day to close that transaction. That transaction actually closed about 6 p.m. at night. And then Letitia and I sat in the office and we printed out flyers on bright orange and bright lime green paper. And we went to the property. Now, keep in mind, this is December, so it's dark. Mm-hmm. And I was, I had my 9mm with me. And we got, we actually had to do the work that night that a property management company would have to do because, you
last minute.
Last minute, you do the thing you have to do. And as it turns out, we operated that property for 2 weeks while we were getting a new property management company. So we walked that property at night, knocking on doors and giving the notice. And then about 2 or 3 days later, we go back to collect rent. And it's the craziest thing. So there was one particular lady there, and she had a brand new whatever phone it was, at the time, i13, whatever it was, which I'm sure at the time was a $1,200 phone. She had Nike Air Jordans on, and what's an Air Jordan? A couple of $100, right? And I just remember that her fingernails were painted out to here, and she had them all decorated. And I asked Letitia, what is a manicure like that cost? And she's like, oh, that's a $300 manicure. And that lady stood there and told Letitia, I don't have the money to pay you. My babies need to eat, and you're just not going to get paid. And I have to, you have to wait. And Letitia came unglued, right? She came unglued on this lady. And I'm like, no, these are our customers. Yes, they're our tenants, but they're our customers. We cannot do this to our customers. So as it turns out, we left. And then the next new management company came in and they handled that stuff. But the point there was that you do what you have to do to take over when it's time to take over your property. Yep. And that's why you hire professional management to go in there and do the stuff that you don't want to do or don't need to do or don't have to do. And so that was kind of a crazy. Then that same property, it had some drug problems at the beginning. And so we cleared that out. We fixed a lot of broken doors, and we put in a police car, and that was during the pandemic. So we had a lot of people that thought they didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
And so we got them to pay, and we got government assistance for them. And as it turns out, we were able to sell that property about 16 months later for a 40% return on investment for our investors.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I never asked in the other episode, but are you doing estoppels for all your properties?
Some are required, some are not. I think this one, I believe this one did require it, right? Sometimes the lenders require it, other times they don't. They will require an updated rent roll the day before you close. Mm. And they'll compare that to the 3 or 4 previous months rent rolls that you furnished to them. So, they're looking for, and of course we always do a lease audit. So, we lay the leases next to the rent roll and we make sure that people are in there that need to be in there. But I do think on that property there was estoppels that were required, but it's not normal.
Okay, I gotcha. I think you have one more story for us.
Yeah, I got a bunch of stories, man. Okay, so our latest transaction was kind of cool. We bought a property in Corpus Christi. We bought it 2 months ago, and it's 101 units, and it's a Class C property.
Okay.
It's an older property. It's 1948, and best we can tell, it's been through 5 hurricanes, right? Wow. But it has survived. And not only has it survived, it's thrived. It's in the middle of a neighborhood that has no other apartment complexes, and it's operating at about 95% occupied.
Wow. Okay.
But the story here is the way that we got the transaction, because we're in a little bit different time right now about how buyers and sellers interact with each other. 3 years ago, a broker would call and say, hey, there's this property for sale. It's $10 million. Take it or leave it. And you could tell them, oh, well, we think it's worth $7 million. They would say, okay, take it or leave it. And it would end up trading and selling for $12 million. So yeah. Crazy times. Fast forward to 2023, late 2023 is when we actually got this under contract, and we discovered that this guy wants to sell it for $7.4 million. We don't think it's worth 7.4. In fact, we think it's worth a little over 6. We value it at 6. We put in an offer at 6, and he's, then we began negotiations, and we negotiated with him for the better part of 2 months, maybe even closer to 3 months, to the point where we sat down with him and the broker and opened up our laptops side by side and said, this is the way that we value the property. These are the line items that we see need to happen. This is the way you think you value the property. They're not matching. So this is what we're buying it on. And this is how we value it. So let us explain to you. So now you don't always get a chance. In fact, you rarely get a chance to sit down with a seller and show them your business plan. And we were able to show them our business plan. I went to dinner with this guy. I went to lunch with this guy several times. Our partners, they went to lunch and dinner with him several times. And we just built a relationship with him. Now, the story is that he had investors that had cycled through. He was cycling through his 5-year business plan on this property, and he had investors that he had promised returns to. So it was time for him to sell the property. And he had done $2.2 million worth of rehab on this particular property. So we were taking over a property that was pretty much rehabbed.
Yeah. Okay?
So we were able to sit down and we were able to show him line by line on our business plan how we arrived at the $6 million purchase price. And he agreed. It made logic to him, to the point where he then turned around after we closed and he invested some of his own money back into our syndication, which was the second time that's happened from a seller putting their money back into our syndication. So he's going to make money one time, he's going to make money twice on that property, right? And so
I think it shows to your thoroughness for them to reinvest. That's all it is. We've had some of our sellers do that sometimes too, and it really is showing to how much of a service we're providing to the sellers if they're willing to reinvest as a lender. So it's really cool. It's really
cool. And then this property, along with others, you have an expectation of what the property is going to be like and how it's going to perform when you take over the keys.
Yep.
And that expectation is usually different from the reality when you take over the keys. So every property, even though we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be like, the experience is going to be like, there's always some nuances there. So this particular property, we had some delinquencies we had to deal with right off the bat. We had some evictions we had to deal with, more than we anticipated. And so the first couple of months of business, it's gone through a real cleansing. And now, which is normal, but it wasn't really expected to this extent, but it's gone through a real cleansing. And so now it's back on, getting filled up with people that we approve. Those aren't stories like people pulling guns on me. I have had a gun pulled on me though. So back at the marina.
Yeah. Back to the marina.
My marina project. But every deal presents challenges that you just have to buckle down and get with it and work through those challenges.
Absolutely. Where can people find you online? I think it's been another great episode of Deal Breakdown. I hope you all enjoyed it. But we have MontelongoCapital.com. And please, if you haven't heard the episode, please go check it out. We cover a lot of cool stuff.
That was a good episode. MontelongoCapital.com and anything social media at Paul Montelongo.
There you go. For everybody here, you know what to do. Thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for listening. Go share with a friend. Like, subscribe, leave us a review. We'll see you in the next episode, guys. Thanks.
Hey, if you'd like to meet us in person, we do an annual event every year, thehiveislive.com/summit. We'll see you there. Have a good day.